I nearly quit crypto last week. Seriously, right? I was this close to throwing in a towel. Then something unbelievable happened. It was a twist that made me rethink everything. So picture this, a massive market crash, panic everywhere, and me staring at my portfolio in despair. But instead of disaster, that crash actually turned into the biggest wake-up call of my crypto life. And I'm about to share how the worst day in crypto became the start of my next big adventure. Now, this isn't just news, it's personal, right? We're going to talk Bitcoin, XRP Cardano's ADA, even a new project that I stumbled upon, and the crazy way that it's all connected together. And trust me here, by the end of this, you're going to see why I'm more excited than ever about where crypto is heading. Oh, and if you want to dig deeper in, or maybe even share your own thoughts, then you can check out the free educational Discord server that is linked in the description. We're talking about this stuff 24/7. Okay, let's rewind to last Friday. I woke up to what felt like a horror show. Bitcoin had plunged over 10% in a single day. Everything was bleeding red, and the trigger, well, some surprise news about a massive tariff, imagine 100% tax on all Chinese imports, courtesy of the President of the United States. So that bombshell kind of sent shockwaves through every market, and crypto took it on the chin. Now, I saw Bitcoin freefall from its highs down to about $102,000, and yes, $102,000, a number that we all, at least would have thought would have been, an all-time high just a few years ago, suddenly looked like a nightmare this year, right? So my stomach had dropped. Altcoins like XRP and Cardano's ADA were in freefall too, like they were tied to an anchor dragging them down. And it wasn't just the prices, it was people too. Crypto Twitter was on fire with panic. I got texts from friends. One buddy was ready to sell everything, saying that, is this it? Is the bull run over before it even started? And honestly, I couldn't blame him for freaking out. I felt the same way a little bit inside. See, I've been through a few of these roller coasters now. I remember the 2018 crash when I panic sold like a newbie and swore that I would never do it again. And earlier in my journey, when the SEC sued Ripple, I watched XRP's price get crushed and wondered if I would ever see it recover. So here I was, facing another kind of crippling moment. Do I hit the eject button, or do I hold on for dear life? And right when the fear was about to win, I stumbled on an online video from a trader called Becker. Now, he was surprisingly pumped. He said, and I'll never forget this, I think there's a very high chance that this is the start of the bull market. Now, seeing right there, or selling right there, would actually, or could be the stupidest thing that I ever do. And I almost fell out of my chair. Like, this guy was calling the start of a bull run on the very day that everything had crashed. I thought, is he crazy? Or could he be right? Then I saw another voice of reason. Samson Moe, a Bitcoin OG, echoed the same sentiment on X, right? Literally saying that it's time for Bitcoin's next leg up. They both believed that this wasn't the end, but instead it was a reset. The word reset, of course, stuck with me. Becker described the wipeout as a massive overreaction and basically a big reset for the market. And the more that I thought about it, the more that it actually made a lot of sense. Over the past year, Bitcoin has been on a tear, climbing steadily, while a lot of other coins that I hold, like XRP and Cardano's ADA, just sat there not really doing much. It was beyond frustrating. Imagine watching Bitcoin make new highs while your altcoin babies are still just crawling. People were getting impatient, right? All-time impatience. Now, Becker called it that. Now, I kind of felt that, right? We all did, right? It's kind of like everyone was holding their breath for the next big altcoin rally that just never came. And eventually, they just snapped, right? According to Becker, that pent-up impatience made the sell-off way more dramatic than it needed to be. Market makers, the big whales and trading firms, were basically yanking the market up and down, and we investors were overreacting 3 or 4 times more than normal to every little move. In his own words, it's because people wouldn't just can wait a couple of months for gains. Right? Pardon the French there, I kind of Try to mute that one out. Anyway, he was fired up about it, and to say the least. And I realized that he actually has a pretty valid point. Right? We've all gotten a little bit too greedy and a little bit too antsy, right? And I see this all the time in the Discord server. So when that kind of tariff news hit and the floor fell from under the market, it kind of shook a lot of those weak hands out, right? Billions of dollars in leverage bets got liquidated because they were too greedy and over leveraged, all in a single day. Over $19 billion, that was with a B, gone, right? To put that into perspective, that was more than 10 times worse than the FTX collapse or even the COVID crash in 2020. It was absolute carnage. But that's what happens when you gamble on the market like that, right? But guess what? I didn't sell. For the first time in a long time, I actually took a breath, remembered the 2018 scars, and held on, maybe even purchased a few coins. In fact, I can't believe I even did this. I went shopping, right? I felt like a scene out of The Big Short, right? When a few crazy people ran towards the fire instead of away from it. I hopped onto my BitGet account. The affiliate link, by the way, is in the description, and it does support the channel if you use it. And it kind of started buying up a few more things, right? I bought up some HBAR. I looked at XRP Bitcoin, even Cardano's ADA. While everything was on discount, right? Even Polkadot was on my radar, right? My heart was pounding. I also set a limit order on BitGet. Again, the affiliate link is in the description. That helps the channel if you want to. And I just to grab a little bit more Cardano if it fell a bit further, right? This, well, of course, wasn't financial advice to anyone else. It just was my gut telling me to do this. If anything really is a great reset, then I'm not going to be missing it. But you know what? This might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor. In fact, nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. So, what happened after my contrarian move? Well, the very next trading day, the market bounced back pretty hard. Bitcoin hit a pretty decent rally, and I was in shock, right? In the span of the weekend, it went from doom and gloom to a bit of euphoria. My phone was blowing up again, but this time with, celebratory memes, and I hope you all bought the dip messages. Now, I kind of sat there grinning a bit like an idiot, partly out of relief and partly because Alex freaking Becker was right. It really did kind of look like the start of a new bullish run. Now, 125k Bitcoin isn't the insane 250k target that some bold analysts kind of threw out earlier in the year. Arthur Hayes, I'm looking at you, right? The man who thinks big. But 125k is nothing to sneeze at. It's, a record high. I think 126k is a record high for Bitcoin. And more importantly, it kind of broke the psychological barrier that has been weighing on a lot of us, right? All of a sudden, the narrative is shifting from crypto is dead to crypto is back. But here is where it gets really interesting. Bitcoin's dominance. Now, it's the share of the total market cap, right? And it shot up to around 60% during all of this chaos. Now, that means that investors rushed into Bitcoin as a bit of a safe haven initially. In bull market history, Bitcoin usually runs first, and then the alts follow. So I'm watching that dominance chart thinking to myself, okay, well, Bitcoin's doing its thing. Then what do the altcoins get, the spotlight, right? When does that happen? And well, it actually might be sooner than we all think, because as the dust settled here, some of those altcoins that had been maybe a bit sluggish started waking up. XRP, for instance, finally started to begin to rally again, right? So dropped down quite aggressively and bounced back very strongly. It climbed off the crash lows and shows some signs of life. And that's pretty huge for me, right? XRP holders, you know the struggle. We sat through brutal SEC lawsuits for nearly 3 years and came out victorious. Right, high five to everyone who hodled through all of that. XRP being free from that cloud was supposed to be our ticket to the moon, but it just kind of, stayed in orbit, not really mooning, right? So seeing it move a little bit now was a little bit better, vindicating maybe. I will admit, though, part of me has always held XRP because I believe in the long-term story, the whole bank's using XRP vision, right? It might sound a bit like a pipe dream, but I've seen enough in crypto not to rule anything out. I mean, I remember people laughing at the idea of Bitcoin at 100K. Not that long ago, yet here we are. So when I hear crazy predictions like XRP to $500, I don't laugh as hard as maybe I used to do, right? In fact, one late night, I actually sat down and actually ran the numbers. If, and it's a big if, XRP were to facilitate a significant chunk of global transfers, and if big institutions do adopt it as a reserve asset, well, it could theoretically reach triple digits or more, right? The math didn't break the laws of physics, surprisingly. It just showed me that while $500 XRP is extremely optimistic and nowhere near my base case, it's not pure fantasy in a world where crypto does go truly mainstream. And that realization gave me a few chills. It almost kind of made me double check how much XRP I was holding. And I'm not going to tell you exactly how much XRP I have because of Risk Management 101. We don't let anyone know how many coins or tokens we have or the dollar values of our portfolios. That is not a good idea, right? So I'm not going to tell you how much, I'm not going to tell you how many coins I now have in my portfolio. Now, a number is just a number, right? I like my round numbers, so maybe it's going to be a round number. But get this. Roughly, only the top X percentage of XRP holders have the same amount as me. So yeah, I'm in the top percentages, shall we say. It's crazy, I know. Anyway, I'm not bragging rights, but there's a lot of people that say that you need to join like a 10% club or something like that. But it is just a number at the end of the day. It's not actually that meaningful. You've got to make sure you use proper risk management at all the time. And of course, I'm not a whale. I'm nowhere near anywhere like that, right? So let's just put that to bed right now. But it's also just reassuring to know that I am in that top 10%, and it kind of is just a number. It doesn't really mean anything, but it's just a psychological milestone that I have now achieved. Anyway, I've got a seat, I guess, at that table. If XRP's day in the sun does finally come, then it's good to know. Anyway, and if it doesn't, well, I can say that I gave it my best shot nonetheless. But let's talk about Cardano ADA for a second, because it's another one that is close to my heart, as you guys probably know. ADA has been in deep hibernation for a while, lagging behind Bitcoin, as kind of Bitcoin stole the show. But after the crash and rebound, ADA actually perked up a fair bit. It's nowhere near its previous highs, of course, but seeing it in the modest green uptick after the crash, and it did drop down to 27 cents on some exchanges, it's definitely an interesting one. So Cardano, after so long, was kind of like a glass of water in the desert, I guess. Cardano is one of those slow and steady kind of projects. It doesn't give you the adrenaline rush of a meme coin. It tests your patience from time to time, but it is building real stuff quietly in the background. And it's got some really good fundamentals coming in the future in terms of their roadmap. I'm really pro ADA. I guess the case in point is that during this market madness, I kept hearing buzz about a project called Unity, and at first I kind of brushed it off. New projects pop up every day in crypto, right? But Unity actually kept coming up in my Discord chats. Shout out to the Discord community, by the way. You guys always find the cool stuff. So I had to check it out. Now, in simple terms, Unity is a kind of project that is actually formed by two other blockchain projects, World Mobile and Minutes Network, which also tie into the real-world telecom industry. Let's think about it this way, right? What if your smartphone could help to understand the wireless networks or the telecommunications hotspots or dead spots and call quality, right? Now, that's essentially kind of the idea here, right? It's part of World Mobile's ecosystem and Minutes Network's ecosystem, which is kind of built on Cardano and now multi-chain, right? And there's a World Mobile chain now, right? Now, this isn't some kind of random token, right? It's actually connected to some pretty ambitious projects aiming to deliver internet and mobile coverage through blockchain technology. Now, why are people talking about it? Well, Unity nodes are kind of unique. Each node is like a mini little network in a box kind of thing, and it comes with 200 licenses that let other people participate. Now, I found that rather fascinating, right? You own this master node, an NFT, like a piece of telecoms network, and you have 200 licenses to connect up to 200 different devices. And basically, you're also able to lease those out to other people if you wanted to. Now, I even took the plunge here and bought a Unity master node myself. Yes, I know I'm the proud owner of one of those Unity nodes, which grants me those 200 licenses. Now, my plan is to set up a small test right here on the desk to test out their application when it goes live. And I want to see how the rewards actually work, how easy it is to use, and all of that good stuff. Now, what I love is that this isn't just about hype, and I'm definitely not here to hype it up, by the way. It's actually about real utility that could potentially allow communities to build their own decentralized mobile networks, or more specifically, build the network that verifies that the existing networks actually work as they should. Now, that's a big deal if it works, because it means that regular people can participate in the telecoms infrastructure, and you get paid in crypto for helping verify and carry network traffic, for example, or to verify that everything is working correctly, I should say. And it ties crypto to something more tangible, right? Keeping people connected. Now, will Unity nodes be a game changer or just a niche experiment? I think it's a little too early to say, but I think it's definitely something that could be a game changer. I'm cautiously optimistic, shall we say, but I'm leaning more to the realistic side than I am cautiously. I'm optimistically, realistically cautious about it, if that's such a thing. So if you're curious, right, about it, you should definitely do your own research. You've got to check out their website. There is a rewards calculator where you can play with the numbers and see the potential earnings. There's a link in the description down below. If that calculator is even remotely correct, then I think a lot of people are going to be doing this instead of a normal 9-to-5 job. That's how game-changing it could be. But you've got to do your own research, and there is a link in the description below so that it help you do that. Now, it's a pretty neat idea to kind of tinker with, but you've got to remember, nothing, I repeat, is guaranteed. I'm treating this like a fun side project for now in my crypto journey. Maybe it pays off, maybe it teaches me something new. Either way, it's a part of the adventure. And I've got to tell you that this whole experience, the gut-wrenching crash, the bold voices calling a bottom, the whiplash rally, and even exploring something new like Unity, it really kind of reframed how I see the crypto space. For a while, I was so focused on prices and short-term moves that I lost sight of the much bigger picture. I'd forgotten that crypto isn't a straight line up. It's a wild journey full of gut checks and breakthroughs. Sometimes the bad news is actually good news, but in disguise. By the end of the weekend, I kind of felt something that I hadn't felt for a long time. Conviction. Not the hopium-fueled, blind faith kind of conviction, but a calm, battle-tested confidence. I remember why I got into crypto in the first place. It wasn't for instant riches, although, hey, I wouldn't be complaining either. It was because I genuinely believe that this technology could change the world. Right? From brief belief gets tested, at least that belief gets tested when the market is crashing and everyone is screaming the doom. But surviving that crash and seeing the market roar back, it was kind of like passing a major test. Even the sentiment indicators went haywire, right? The fear and greed index hit extreme fear. About 24 out of 100 on Sunday, right when things were about to bounce, right? Now, that isn't that just crazy, right? Extreme fear often kind of means everyone could be scared, into selling that has already kind of sold, right? It's a classic contrarian signal that an upturn might actually be around the corner, right? And lo and behold, that's exactly what has happened, right? The moment of maximum fear turned into, well, the bottom. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to skyrocket in a straight line from here, right? We might just chill out for a little bit. Even a cautious analyst, 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗱 suggested that Bitcoin could cool off for a few weeks after that big kind of pullback. Now, that's fine, right? Let the market breathe. Let people catch their breath, right? Bull markets aren't one-way rockets. They climb a wall of worry. And trust me, there's plenty of worry to go around. But hey, my big takeaway is that frightening plunge resets the stage, right? It shook out the weak hands. It's got rid of all those gamblers in the market, 1.6 million of them got wrecked, resets a whole lot of valuations. And it reminded everyone, myself included, that having a plan and staying calm really does matter. For those of us who have stuck around, who maybe hold XRP or Cardano's ADA, our Bitcoin, has been through the storm, or maybe even bought even more during the dip. This feels like the beginning of something rather special. It's kind of like we've survived the boss battle in a video game, and now we get to explore the next level with all the experience points that we've earned. I, for one, am excited to see where it goes next. Maybe this really is the start of the bull run that we've been waiting for, with new all-time highs and an altcoin season on the horizon. Maybe we zigzag a little bit first, but that's okay too. Either way, I'm strapped in for the ride, and I'm prepared, or at least more prepared than ever before. So yeah, last Friday, I almost quit crypto. I'm glad that I didn't. Instead, I lived through one of the wildest market shakeouts. I came out of the other side with more knowledge, more conviction, and even a new venture. Shout out to Unity, that is now on my radar. My confidence in crypto is back, and it's a humble confidence. Now, I know that things can turn on a dime, but I also know that sometimes the darkest hour really is just before the dawn. So if you're still here, take a moment to reflect on your own journey. What did you learn from these ups and these downs? If nothing else, I hope that my story shows you that every setback can set the stage for an epic comeback. So smash the like button, hit subscribe button if you've enjoyed this little adventure and want to join me on the next one. We're in for one heck of a ride, and I'm going to be here sharing every step of the way. I'll see you all in the next video.